So you're here to protect her. What are you? Never seen one like you before. Almost human.
I am human. Just enhanced. You know, increased speed and strength, which means I can rip your throat out if you piss me off, so don't. Your turn.
My name is Sarah Connor. When I was about her age, a Terminator was sent to kill me. To stop the birth of my son, John. Leader of the Resistance. We changed the future. Saved 3 billion lives. You're welcome.
Do you expect me to talk?
Hello and welcome to episode 167 of Do You Expect Us to Talk? I'm Becca and as always joined by my fellow co-hosts Chris and Dave and special guest Charlie of Movie Drone. How are you all?
Good evening, folks.
Good evening.
Get it in stereo.
Good evening. I've just come back from doing super soldier shit. That's all the explanation of that that film gives us.
I'm back from doing future shit.
Yeah.
I mean, they don't explain much, do they? It's like
I've been busy overacting the role of me whilst looking like Michael Douglas.
Unfortunately, she does. Oh,
We'll get on to Linda Hamilton. We'll get on to it.
we'll come on to her later
which
on.
era, Michael Douglas? Is this
So she tidies herself up a bit.
is this basic instinct, Michael Douglas, or is this like
Michael Douglas.
or is this like older?
Well, this is more Ant-Man era, to be honest.
Oh, that's a bit hard.
And she
Not beyond the cowboy. No.
can't help getting older, but there's something in her eyes and expressions that remind me of Michael Douglas, plus the hair. And it's the one bit that I sort of really didn't cover in sort of a written review. I kind of sort of said, they slip back into their roles and all the rest of it. And I thought about it afterwards, and I thought I should have been a little bit tougher on her there, to be honest, because Linda Hamilton comes across like she hasn't acted in years. She's just overplaying almost every fucking expression she does, and it's playing that one-dimensional sort of version of Sarah Connor I'm not fond of anyway. So she's not that good.
No, I sort of think it's kind of more like she's kind of battle hardened. She's weary. She's been doing this for years and years and years, and they're literally, she's kind of reaching the end of her tether. That's the sort of impression that I got. But it's very tired. I would agree, Dave.
She's tough and shit talks everyone. That's the
that's it. That's her line. That's it. There's no deviation from that. That's literally her shtick.
Yeah, and what makes it even, I don't say even worse, but anyway, even worse. Is that seeing Jamie Lee Curtis in the Halloween that came out last year, who also played a similarly kind of reclusive, trained soldier type, but someone who had been very affected by trauma, and there was just a world of difference between Linda Hamilton's performance and which I thought was just it felt like an over the top parody almost of Sarah Connor from T2. Versus kind of Jamie Lee Curtis, who had a lot more nuance and a lot more emotion to it.
Jamie Lee Curtis has a tendency to underplay things in it, and that's a positive. And I thought Linda Hamilton did as well, but not in this film. There's too much going on in the eyes, frankly. As simple as that. It reminded me a little bit of Carrie Fisher in The Force Awakens, in that Carrie Fisher, by the time of The Last Jedi, was really, really good. She went out on such a strong performance. But in The Force Awakens, it took me years to get to the position of I think she was just nervous. And I wonder if there was a little bit of that going on.
Maybe. I mean, thinking about it now, I think it's probably a case of she's been away from the role for whatever reason. Now she's back. She's like, oh great, I'm in a big mainstream film playing the character that I am. That the reason why I'm famous for, really. And I think it's probably one of those cases where she's just surrounded by a bit too much encouragement and not enough maybe sort of direction or creative influence where you think maybe you should go with this angle or this. It's just like, yeah, I'm going in full barrels here, and because the film is pretty much her film. You could probably argue whether it really is her film or not, but when you're watching it, it is all about Sarah Connor. She does just sort of take over the screen somewhat, and all the other characters just seem to just sort of happen in the background.
Yeah, we all stand and watch her, including all the support. Yeah.
I don't think it's her film. It looks like
it's meant to be Dani's film, but I found Dani quite bland.
Yeah, it's Grace's film.
It's Grace's film. It's meant to be Dani's film, but it's Grace's film.
Yeah, she steals the whole movie. She's fantastic.
Well, she's the best thing in it, Mackenzie Davis, in terms of any of the people who were on screen for most of the film. The Dani, that character, Natasha Reyes, I found her really, really bland.
I thought she just didn't. We didn't really get to spend much time with her. Arnie, it has some great lines.
That's probably why.
The idea of like a trilogy like anchored by that character is just like, nah, you're all right. Don't bother.
It felt a bit underserved by her, unfortunately, but she did the best she could. I think.
It doesn't help the fact that she looks really young. I was surprised to find out she's like about 32.
Well,
really?
When they did the future scenes, they tried to make
she looks even younger in the future. That's what's weird.
Well, yeah, because they tie her hair back so it looks like a fucking child.
It looks like she's 12.
But there you go.
But she's clearly got good genes. Why not?
Yeah. So what are we covering tonight, Becca?
As if you hadn't guessed, tonight we are reviewing Terminator Dark Fate. Spoiler alert. Already, this is going to be the spoilerist show ever. Yeah, if you haven't seen the show, if you haven't seen the film, pause it now. Go watch the film. Come back. Hello, thanks for joining us again.
And if you have seen the film, of course, perhaps take some time to watch our sitcom of the week.
What would that be? You posted a picture of them.
That is 1968 to 1972's Please Sir, starring John Alston.
Oh my god.
And who's in this film, Becca?
I'd never heard of that sitcom until now.
Have you not?
I might have vaguely heard of it. I'd never ever seen it. So
one of the sort of main teenagers in it went on to be Ralph in Dear John.
Okay.
With Ralph Bates.
That's a fun fact.
He was in the 1970s Poldark.
Yes, legendary actor for sure. But no, starring
again, legendary. No one's heard of him, but legendary.
Well, that's quite it's quite a well-known movie. At least he is quite a well-known actor. So.
Except it's not a movie, and he's dead.
No, TV show. You know what I mean.
Continue, Becca. We're enthralled.
No, I won't. Yeah, anyway, tonight we are reviewing Terminator Dark Fate, starring Arnie, Linda Hamilton, Mackenzie Davis, Natalie Reyes, Gabriel Luna, Diego Boneta, and that is as far as I will go. With more unpronounceable names, apologies. With a score by Junkie XL, known for Mad Max, and Alita Battle Angel. With a script by Justin Rhodes, David Scoyer, Billy Ray, directed by Tim Miller, inexplicably, and released in 2019. We've kind of done this backwards. We've already done our opening thoughts.
Well, we haven't really. We've only talked about Linda.
We've done it sideways. But anyway, yes. Tell us about the history of this movie, how it came to be, Dave.
Well, history of the movie is quite simply the
production history.
Well, the rights reverted back to James Cameron some time ago, because actually one of the things we haven't really talked about is if you watch every Terminator film is being made by somebody else, in terms of studios and all the rest of it. It pinged around all over the place. I mean, T3 was made by a company that sort of didn't exist the following year. So it came back towards James Cameron. James Cameron is sort of caught up in, Avatar sequels forever. And And so, it was offered sort of Tim Miller's way, which is one of the reasons Tim Miller didn't make Deadpool 2. Budget-wise, it really it only cost about the same as T3. So there's been a little bit of stagnation that way, in that the series is not the sure bet it used to be. That they could sort of get to the point they're throwing 300 million or anything like that at it anymore. So yeah, this is just what happens when it goes back James Cameron's way, and he just says, forget all of those sequels, including Genesis, which I didn't praise, honestly. Well, we were, by the time you've heard this, we'll have covered Genesis, but one of the things we will have talked about on the Genesis review is the fact that James Cameron became quite a talking head for that film, and I think probably ended up feeling a bit embarrassed, because it's quite clear that I don't think he saw it. I think he probably saw some promotional materials and read a synopsis and thought, wow, finally somebody's doing something interesting with this, because I think the end result of Genesis isn't praiseworthy in any way. I think he is a large part of the reason Linda Hamilton's back. She's always been reluctant to come back when without James Cameron being involved himself. Remember, Genesis was meant to be the first of a sort of a trilogy. I would express surprise Arnie was in this, but Arnie does turn up to the opening of a fridge, so it's not that much of a shock.
It wouldn't be. Well, I'll say. It wouldn't be as much of a Terminator movie without Arnie, but I would say in the screening that I was in, his lines probably got the most laughs, and he still put in a solid performance. He is he owns this role. Done it for many years, as we know, but yeah, he's pretty much solid, I think. In
recording order, this comes after we recorded T3, and of course, so I'm currently editing T3 in order. And the opening sequence I use on that recording is the bit where Arnold is reprogrammed, and he's a bad guy for a minute, and he's "I am a machine," and all that kind of stuff. Having listened to that clip a few times, Arnold is positively fucking Laurence Olivier in this film.
He is very funny. He's hilarious.
Very funny. He's very good.
Or whatever the line is, but I am hilarious, or something like that.
Yeah.
More McBain than Arnie. Sorry.
There's a few little touches in it that are kind of interesting, but yeah, I mean that's it for the making. Really, you can see it's a 2019 Terminator film in that it's an awful lot more. There's more diversity within it, as you would probably expect these days. I think that's very much in line with what James Cameron's always tried to do in his career, anyway, and. The idea is to give us a sort of it's another thing I'll liken to The Force Awakens, actually, in the Star Wars films were all about defeating the Empire. They defeat the Empire, the series goes away for a few years, we then get a prequel trilogy, which is neither here nor there, explaining the backstory. But Star Wars was about defeating the Empire. On a personality and sort of character level, it was about an awful lot more than that, and it probably wasn't even the main bit of it, really, but the macro story was to beat the Empire. And of course they bring Star Wars back sort of what would it have been at the time, 30 odd years after the original series, and just roll out something that looks very similar. It's the First Order, and effectively Star Wars became sort of an eternal struggle. You defeat evil and another version of evil will arise, and it's an eternal battle between good and evil. And that's what this film is kind of doing. It's reframing the Terminator series as, it's become about Skynet, and they've sort of crammed that and John Connor into all of these sequels, not particularly successfully. And here they've just said, okay, we've beaten Skynet, but that doesn't stop humanity moving towards ever greater technology, and with all the same risks that Skynet presented. Therefore, you knock that out, there will be something similar in its place. And so the battle now has become sort of recurring and eternal. Whether that's I part of me, and we'll get into first thoughts in a minute, I guess, but part of me would think, well, this film could be a fucking masterpiece, and I'd still find that a bit sad, because it just completely It just undermines the Terminator as far as I'm concerned. They produced a masterpiece 35 years ago, which ended on a note of, we don't know what's going to happen, but... And since then, we've seen the insides and outsides of a cat's fucking ass on Skynet, and I'm now at the point that it's like, just remember when it was like, maybe we don't know, you know what I mean? And now we've just seen every fucking thing, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I feel like I've gone to see a striptease and I've walked in and they're completely naked with their legs spread wide. And it's like,
talk to the hand.
I think we've forgotten the fucking tease aspect of this, haven't we? But there you go. Let's start with some opening thoughts. Somebody else, please, first.
Right.
Charlie.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry, put you on the spot.
No, that's all right. This film is basically like the end of the A-Team or Magnum PI or Airwolf or whatever, where they have the end credits over a series of scenes from different episodes in the series. And this film basically just feels like that with the Terminator series. Very much the first three films. Everything's kind of regurgitated, and it's kind of, okay, let's pull that from here and pull that from here and pull that from here. We'll change the names a bit, and we'll change that a tiny bit, and hopefully no one will notice because we brought Linda Hamilton back and Arnie's back, and I was fairly bored throughout the whole thing. I was never invested in any of it, except for parts of Mackenzie Davis' character Grace, the Augment. But it just felt kind of lazy, and it's funny because looking at the reactions of this thing, and the general kind of idea is that it's the best Terminator film since T2, which obviously isn't saying a lot, but some people seem to be treating it as some fucking
return to form.
Return to form. And I heard someone saying it was breathtaking.
Well,
and it's kind of like,
it's good, but it's not that good.
Yeah, maybe gasping at some of the laziness in it. And it's kind of like, it's just the whole thing with, okay, no, it's not Skynet anymore, it's Legion, and this is happening and this is happening, but it's still kind of the same thing. And it just, it didn't really have me. The Terminator, the Rev 9 Terminator, again, he had all the new tricks, and he had a kind of a decent feel, but he didn't have the intensity of either Patrick or Arnie when he was the Terminator. So it just kind of all felt kind of going through the motions with no payoff. But then again, you did see Edward Furlong get brutally murdered, so that was quite entertaining.
That's the thing. People were saying, "Oh, it's awful. It's got a sort of Newton Hicks moment at the start," and I was thinking, "No, everyone liked Newton Hicks." Like, no, I was fucking delighted. It was brilliant. I was hoping he'd be shot in the face a few times and maybe the bollocks.
I've heard a few people criticise Cameron's hypocrisy of criticising Alien 3, the decision to kill Newton Hicks, just thinking well, you just fucking just made the whole my film completely redundant, and then he kind of does a similar thing to his own film now.
Yeah, but the difference is it's 3 years after the aborted Judgment Day. They succeeded. You know what I mean? It's a little bit different. I mean, Aliens, they got away and sort of crash landed moments later. If you believe Alien 3, it literally undermined the film almost immediately. Only thing is, Edward Furlong didn't age in 3 years, did he? According to the CG.
No, he still looks the same.
That's what drugs does to you, folks.
And Alien 3 is a miles better film than this.
Alien 3 is not at all a bad film in my view, but we'll cover that one day, and Charlie will be on that series.
Yes.
But I do also appreciate the fact that Skynet and John Connor, at this point, it's kind of been done to death, so I can see the logic in just sort of, let's just start something new. Let's just let's just move away, move a bit beyond that and do something different. So I can understand the thinking this time around.
Yeah.
But
yeah, well, I mean, what
different,
would they
really.
have done? Do another film where we're trying to stop Judgment
it's
Day,
Skynet. It's
we'll
Skynet
send
again,
the
yeah.
seventh Terminator back to get him, and this one can give you an erection with just a look. You know, it's like we were just constantly raising the threat and skill set level, but that doesn't mean I'm going to give this a pass particularly. Charlie, you got anything more you want to add on this as an opening thought?
No, I don't think so.
Okay, Becca.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not as harsh. I mean, it's not the film of 2019. I think of all the comebacks that we've seen so far this year, this is probably the most impressive. But for me, my two standouts probably would be Arnie, hilarious, and Mackenzie Davis. I think, as far as I'm concerned, she's the star of this film. And seeing lights up whenever she's on screen puts in a solid performance, and of all the characters, she's the one who stands out for me. In terms of Gabriel Molina's, I can't even remember the name of his.
Rev 9.
Because
he's worth it.
Sounds like a car model.
It really does.
Toyota Rev 9.
Toyota Rev 9 or something like that. Other cars are available. Or it could be like some cyber reverend from the future. I mean, he's kind of got that look, but as you say, he's not quite up there in terms of ranking with Arnie or indeed Robert Patrick, who forever for me be on that pedestal as an iconic character. To its credit, it's just it's not a very long film, 2.5 hours, and it rattles along. What you're talking about, going back to sort of like baggy third act, wasn't for me. Didn't feel that baggy, to be honest. Still, really, really super effective. I didn't see the 3D version. Just saw it in standard 2D. I'm still gripped, but I'm kind of glad I did, because obviously with 3D you've got the 30% light loss as well, which I think would have annoyed me, because obviously the last third of the film is very dark, quite literally. Also being set at night, and that's something that really does annoy me. You can't see what's going on. Wasn't too annoyed by the obvious, bits of that are prepped for 3D and that obviously don't come off when you're watching it in 2D. Visuals were absolutely stunning. There's probably one effect early on in the film where we see Rev 9 climb up some machinery. That was a bit, it grated for me just a little bit. It looked a little bit fake. But the rest of it was fine. I was just really blown away by the visuals. I would agree that Sarah Connor is a little bit... She's still, I think Linda Hamilton does give a really believable performance. You do feel that she's very battle-scarred, very tired. And she's tough for a reason. Because she's put up with this shit for years. And that's her life. That's her raison d'etre. That's who she is. That's who she is now. But it's kind of a little bit one note. But otherwise, solid performances all round. Amazing music. I was really impressed by the score. I think it was very cool. But then I enjoyed Mad Max and Ellie as well. As I say, 3 out of 5.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, like Beck, I'm not too hard on it. I mean, I thought it was fine. It passed the time perfectly well. It had some interesting things I thought I quite like. That's a different spin on it, and that's a different take. It's particularly stuff with Arnie, the idea of after Terminator finishing his mission and then over time growing a conscience. That kind of stuff and that kind of dynamic with Sarah Connor. I thought, oh, that's something new. That's something different. That follows on from Terminator 2 to a degree. But like Charlie said, it just kind of follows like a bit from Terminator, a bit of Terminator 2. It's basically sort of Sarah and Carl Reese, and a bit of the T-1000 in there, and it's just all just stuff we've seen before, and without any of the. There's no emotional gut punch to anything. I mean, spoiler when where it's I was trying to think of her name. Grace. When Grace gives her life. That's another thing. It also has a bit of a Terminator 3 at the end. They're taking that power source to. When Grace gives her life, though, I didn't have any emotional weight to it. You know, when you think back to the first Terminator, when it's like Carl Reese, and when he dies, you feel, you know, you do feel like a mournfulness for it. There's the general loss there, and I just didn't feel like those characters, Dani and Grace, weren't given enough time to me to invest in it. I think it was the film. I think the story was about them, but the film was more kind of like, hey, look, Sarah Connor's back and she's badass, and she kind of just sort of steals the limelight a lot of the time. It kind of takes away from the prime story, which is really about them two, and that's ultimately where the film failed. I think it tried to have its cake and eat it.
Yeah, I'm kind of with Becca on a sort of scoring. It's inherently a bit of a 3-star film for me, but it's following the Terminator, and that's been my problem with all of this. Really, it's following the Terminator.
Yeah, it's one of the all-time, iconic films for sure. But I kind of think, I know a lot of the talk around it has been that it is meant to be like the spiritual successor to Terminator 2. So just forget all the other films that have come in between. It literally goes like
it
1, 2, Dark Fate. I can kind of see that through line.
Well, it is. I mean, the first scene is the coda to T2.
Well, yeah, exactly.
And it fits. It fits.
The other films happen on a separate timeline.
It kind of fits in tonally. It kind of runs on from it. Okay, it does everything competently well.
That's just it. That's the problem.
We sat here and praised The Force Awakens, but it's kind of doing similar things in some ways. Force Awakens is a better film than this, but it is doing some of the same things. It is that cynical studio filmmaking that where we've got to resurrect it. At least, though, they have tried to move it on. I was very worried when I saw the trailers and we saw like a highway chase, and I thought, this is just everything we've seen before. Well, at least the action in this film does try to find a few different wrinkles, and we'll talk about how well it did it in a while. Having sort of covered Genesis last week, at least chronologically in release order, the funny thing is we're in a position now that I can't spoil Genesis for Charlie, who's already reviewed it. But they tried to do something. They tried to do something similar with Arnie in Genesis, and it's way more successful here. It's a better performance here. Makeup choices as well. I mean, Arnie, they sort of aged him, but put this kind of bouffanty fucking coffee fucking thing on his head. Is that his hair, or is that like a little bit of help?
Might be a wig, you never know.
Don't know. Here it all looks a lot more natural. So the action, as sort of first time I've watched the action in a Terminator film for a while, and thought, well, at least that's a bit different. At least that's not too bad. But it's and on the plus side, the Grace characters. No, I think I better put that differently, actually. Mackenzie Davis is great. I'm not sure whether Grace is, but I think that's an element of where the focus of the film is. Because you watch this film and you think, who's it for?
Yeah.
Who's it for? Because it strikes me it's aimed at me and Charlie. Do you know what I mean? It's people who remember the Terminator at the time and they've been watching the series. At very least, they've got like a lot of nostalgia for T2. And have watched and been disappointed by the sequels. So a lot of the focus is on a 63-year-old woman. I don't know how old she's playing. I'd have to sit and do the math. So I think on the basis of the year, it's 25 years after T2. She was 29 in T2. So in real time, she'd be about 54. But we know the actress is about 63, something like that. So a lot of the focus is on her. And when the door opens to reveal Arnie, again, I thought of Happy Days. It was like the Fonz making a fucking appearance. It was a little bit like, and here he is. So who's it aimed at? I don't think it quite stands alone enough for like a new, fresh, young audience, which does concern me slightly. I'm thinking, we're trying to launch something fresh. So they don't really know where the focus of the film is meant to lie. So it's sort of Linda Hamilton's film. It really should be Dani's film. Think of how much we got out of Linda Hamilton.
First Terminator.
Think of the first Terminator film. Linda Hamilton wasn't some afterthought with all of the focus being on Michael Biehn or something. it wasn't quite done like that, so that's a disappointment. And the Dani character suffers because I find her really bland. But I did say offline, because Becca said, in part, that she enjoyed that character, and I said, well, I'm not going to slag her off, Becca. I mean, Becca's done this show long enough with me that she knows that I would if I wanted to, but there's nothing there to slag off. She's not bad, it's just bland. And of the two the two main new characters, the one of interest is Grace, because there's a bit of a new wrinkle in that character. But not only that actress burns the fucking screen up. She's got screen presence to burn. So Dani's going to suffer in that. This really small, diminutive Mexican girl playing between an interesting new character who's got so much screen presence and the glorious return of Linda Hamilton. And then later in the film, you're going to stick her next to a 6-foot odd tall Austrian fucking oak. So, she was always going to suffer in that regard. In terms of what did I think of the film, I'm watching it and there's a cynicism to it. There is let's not. On the one hand, congratulations, it finally fucking occurred to you, bellends, to move on from Skynet. But at the same time, you've just presented the exact same thing reskinned, and you've just shifted the time frame forward a bit, not as far forward as I thought they might. There's something about us getting to sort of a quarter of the way through this century that if you put the same sort of time gap on as you did from the Terminator, we'd be in like 2060 something, and that just sounds too sort of. It's getting a bit too Star Trek then, I think. I think they feel they can't go that far ahead.
Yeah, because it would be like your great grandson.
Yeah, but the thing is, when you were crossing the sort of barrier of we were still 16 years from the end of the century when the Terminator came out. So go a few years the other side, it doesn't sound as dramatic somehow. But I enjoyed it for what it was. I thought it was quite funny in places. But again, even that bothers me. Because what am I watching? It's quite clear I'm watching an action film, I guess. But again, we started with a Stone Cold classic that had horror overtones, and we're sat here like going, oh, "Isn't Arnie funny in this one?" It's like,
yeah,
all right. But I guess you make that deal with the devil in that it's a big budget sort of blockbuster. The new Terminator's fine. I think he moves quite efficient and quite well. He is walking in big footsteps though, and he's not particularly memorable. His skill set, you might have moved on from Skynet, but you've still got the same problem of let's just escalate a little bit each time. I mean, why does this man ever, or man, we'll call him a man even though he's not, but why would he ever attack as a single entity when he can split into two and double the threat?
Yeah.
Why would you ever attack in one entity? So again, that was a little bit, that's gimmicky. If this had been the first ever Terminator film and you'd given us like all the backstory we needed, either in like a little prologue or a voiceover or text at the start of the film, there's no way you'd have gone with this as a skill set on a first film. It wouldn't have made any sense at all. The only reason this thing is, just finishing off scenes, giving people fucking happy endings or something, is that they have to throw on a different fucking thing every single time, and you just wonder, well, what will be next? It's fine, in all honesty. It's a 3-star film. The weakest thing in the film, and I will say this, is Linda Hamilton. She overacts an awful lot of it. The characterization is that extrapolation of T2, but it's in T2 you've got a woman who 10 years before had been, all-American girl, nice sort of teenager, reasonably smart and all the rest of it, and they tried to slightly harden her. A lot of the problems I had with it was they just stuck her in like military-ish garb and shades and put a cigarette in her mouth, and that was doing the heavy lifting of characterization. And people was, she was quite muscular and stuff, so people were going, look at that, look what they did with the character. And I'm thinking, yeah, they destroyed it. And of course, we've now got another 30 years or whatever of a character hardening even more, particularly based on what we're going to talk about in the first scene. And it's just become this hardened cynic who drops in dialogue that she drinks too much. And I'm thinking, no, you're a hardened Terminator killer. There is no way you're getting blackout drunk every night. You wouldn't fucking function. particularly as the actress. I remember Linda Hamilton saying she didn't eat a carb for a year. She don't mean literally, of course, but like she was preparing for this film for about a year physically. That's not compatible with being a drunk. But there you go. Anyway, and she kind of shit talks everyone a bit, and she's all bug eyes and pulling faces that just remind me of Michael Douglas. I could not get Michael Douglas out of my head.
Cannot unsee.
Once I noticed it. And I'm hoping I'm going to put some of that in your head, listeners, and that will ruin it for you too.
Cannot unsee.
Yeah, I mean, I've only seen it once. It's a film that I'd happily watch again. As for is it the best film since T2? Yeah, of course it is. I mean, Genesis was an embarrassment. Salvation, just on the basis that because again, we've already given you a glimpse behind the magic. We've not recorded Salvation at the time of recording this, and I haven't rewatched it yet. But my recollection of Salvation's aside, fundamentally, you shouldn't be showing the future in the Terminator. It's all about hope and avoidance and your distance from both. You know, how far is it about preparing for the future and how far is it about trying to avoid the future? That's what the Terminator series is, and it always must have that kernel of hope. That damages 3 when they say it's inevitable. No, it isn't. It never was. 3 we have reviewed and we found it deeply perfunctory. It's better than that. Because T3 didn't even try anything new except, again, upgrade the Terminator a bit. So it is the best film since 91. There's some touches in it that actually bring it well into line with the 91 film. But yeah, it's a 3-star film for me, and it's a very distant third in the series. Don't imagine that like we've had all these sequels and finally we're back to sort of that T2 standard. We're not. T2 is a vastly superior film to Dark Fate.
One thing I didn't particularly rate T3 much, but the crane chase just at least felt a more visceral kind of sequence than anything in this film. But also, going back to Linda Hamilton, it didn't really feel like Sarah Connor added anything to the story. Like she was there literally because she's Sarah Connor and because they wanted to make this a return to the classic Terminator and what have you.
Yeah, I'd have to see it again to really think about that, but it was all the she was me and all the rest of it. I mean, I suppose if you took Linda Hamilton out of it entirely and Arnie out of it entirely, because I think if you remove one, you effectively remove the other.
Yeah.
What you would have would be a reboot of the Terminator.
Yeah, because it feels like a soft reboot anyway.
I think it's intended to be that, to be honest.
Yeah, and to be honest, that idea of taking them both out is far more appealing than what we got, to me.
That's just brought the mood right down. I think we need cheering up.
I mean, wouldn't the Sarah Connor character work better?
So I'm back in my happy place now. Carry on.
Were there ever any lyrics for that?
Yeah. Da 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 da.
Yeah, I was a split second behind Chris. I was kind of, yeah, they are. It's a bit like there's lyrics to the Archers. Dum da dum da dum da dum. Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah.
Sorry, Chris.
No, but I was just gonna just a random thought. Wouldn't the Sarah Connor character work better had it been like, because she's like the one who's like tracking and hunting Terminators, right?
Yeah.
So wouldn't it sort of work if she kind of came across Dani on her own and she was the protector? There wasn't like a Grace type character, and so would have been a little more. Do you know what I mean?
Oh,
not. You'd have to go into the whole thing of how. Then you have to go into the whole thing of how did she find out, and. Well,
yeah. Oh, that's true. Yeah.
I mean, she got texts again.
Yeah.
Which doesn't entirely make sense, but I think they cheapen T2 a little bit, but I think it's unavoidable if you're going to bring this back and set it in the same continuity and stuff, because. Firstly, Linda Hamilton's character is now going around killing Terminators without difficulty. She only struggles with the new one because it's more technologically advanced than what she knows. But yeah, T-800...
But what were those other Terminators sent to do?
We'll get on to that in a minute. because it's madness. It is utter madness as a concept.
That's one of those you don't really think about.
It's not much better than we've got to get to the future as soon as possible.
It isn't going to be like that, isn't it? It's like quick.
Well, all right, let's cover it now, right? What they basically say is they send a load of Terminators back in case the T-1000 fails. But instead of sending back a load of advanced prototypes, they send back a load of T-800s. But you go, well, all right, maybe they only had one T-1000. Fair enough, okay. But they send it back to different times and places. So even places makes no sense. You think, well, times, all right. So, but if they stopped, every now and again, I'd get a message saying one had turned up here, and I think, but if it turns up there at that time, you've missed Judgment Day. You're trying to protect Judgment Day happening. The machines are trying to make sure it goes ahead, and yet you send them back to a time where Judgment Day's already been averted, because this is post the death of John Connor. Or you send them back somewhere different. I get a message I had to go there. And it's like, I'm sorry, if you want to make sure they kill John Connor, send 58 fucking Terminators back to 1995 fucking LA and have a great big John Connor pile-on. Job fucking done.
And if Skynet has been defeated and Judgment Day is over, then surely that means that Skynet can no longer send Terminators back.
Well,
because they've been defeated.
No, I think they sent them all back at the same time, effectively, but they've sent them back 2 different times, I think.
But I guess that goes to the think of, well, if that's the case, then if they don't survive to be able to send them back, it's like in Bill and Ted. In Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey, they set up the guy at the end, and then it turns out that his gun is loaded with a little Wild Stallions flag, because the only people that can change the future are the ones that win.
Right.
So it's that kind of, just like, is it then? Does it go on to Legion sending these guys back? It's just, but then that's the natural. It is. I mean, I'm being slightly pedantic.
As far as I understand, Skynet went, oh my God, we're beaten. We've got to send someone back to kill John Connor. We'll send a T-1000. Actually, while we're at it, we've got a warehouse full of T-800s. Just send them all. Right? So they've sent them all, but instead of sending them all back to like fucking the summer of 1995, they've sent one back to there, one back to, I mean, let's say that T-800 that did kill him took some time to find him. Well, he's either been sent back way later, or he's been sent back at the same time and he's taken some time to find him. Well, if he's taken 3 years to fucking find him, you probably didn't put him that close. So it is like, let's send one to Tahiti just in case. It's just, there's no logic to it.
Yeah, was he following her around in somewhere else and then decided, okay, she's going to go there, so I better go to a travel agent and book myself a holiday.
So it doesn't really work.
No, yeah.
It's the only way you keep it in continuity with T2, I guess. I dare say if we sat there here long enough, and we're literally trying to sort of break a story, I think if we thought about it long enough, we'd find another way to kill off John Connor and do it. But there you go. It doesn't.
It's possible.
See, if the film was just about killing off John Connor multiple times, then I'd
that's
be
fine.
Full support.
Just watch that. 2 hours of super slow-mo shooting in the gut and face. Yeah.
Here's Edward Furlong being forced to swallow dynamite.
Why don't we just make a live-action Roadrunner film with with Edward Furlong as Wile E. Coyote?
Not Edward Snowden.
Not Edward Snowden. All right, folks, shall we discuss this film sequentially?
Yes.
Opening sequence.
That'll be a feat.
Starts with the voiceover again. Linda Hamilton, who's again. I really don't want to shame people for what happens to our bodies. She's got older, but her voice sounds a lot older, doesn't it?
She sounds like she smokes 50 a day.
That's exactly it.
She probably has done.
That's my point.
I mean, her character.
She always had a very attractive voice, and now it sounds like you're kind of a irascible grandma.
Although it could be obviously amazing acting skills, but she sounds sort of very, is so very raspy. But I think that's just because she's very tough. She's lived a tough life. Obviously her character, not Linda Hamilton, and and she just kind of lived on the edge, on the fringes of society for a long, long time, and it's, you know, clearly eating away at her.
Charlie, what were you going to say? It starts on.
Oh, it starts with the footage from T2, doesn't it? The video.
Of course,
it does. Yeah.
That was intercut with all the sort of studio idents.
Weird.
There were. I couldn't believe how many studio idents there were.
Yeah,
it's to a lot. I couldn't believe it. I thought, how far are we going to go here? This is just every studio in the world worked on this. Kept into but they keep the video going, or at least the voice of the video going. So I'm presuming in different markets they can time that differently because distribution's different everywhere. So they've overdone the VHS effect. You could tell that VHS effect is kind of added.
Yeah.
But it is the bit from T2 where she loses her shit, where they show that in T2 they show her a video of her losing her shit, and it's that video.
Yeah.
And it is just her going mad. Everyone is dead. Me, you, everybody. Anyone not wearing 2 million sunblock. You get it?
We're all dead, Dave.
We're all dead, Dave.
They did cut out.
Even Kachansky. We're all dead, Dave.
What did they cut out?
They cut out Silberman.
Yeah.
Her saying Silberman. Because she says, "You were the one living in a fucking dream, Silberman."
But yeah, she didn't say Silberman. I was sort of thinking,
I guess they didn't go, "Who's Silberman?" Oh yeah, that guy.
I say it's probably one of the ones that Elbow wasn't in. But yeah, I noticed that as well, Charlie. Thank you for confirming.
I didn't notice. I was actually looking for cuts because I couldn't remember what it is R-rated in the States though, so I was waiting for them to cut for language and stuff, and of course they didn't.
Well, yeah, considering it's 15 over here. I mean, obviously there's a lot of F-bombs and a lot of swears and the rest of it, and I was thinking it's quite a lot for a 15, but I think you can have a certain amount, can't you?
Oh, 15, you can do whatever you fucking want.
Yeah, you could.
So many films have been regraded to 15 now.
I was going to say.
Yeah, exactly. It's a lot more lax now.
I think you've all got to fucking urinate on each other to get an 18 now. It's quite tough.
Or you've got to do an animal or something.
Yeah.
Or something, a lewd act.
A lewd act.
As we mentioned last time.
Like going to the charity shop and buying an adult DVD. That sort of thing. Yes.
Or seeing someone go to the cinema underage.
Yeah. But no, we had that in our charity shop as well. Like they did adult paperbacks and children's paperbacks, and it's kind of like, well, adult paperbacks, is that like 50 Shades of Grey or something like that?
It's exactly the same, but all the pages are stuck together.
Yeah. It's the Kama Sutra. But no, I sort of had a word with Imagine. I said, this is kind of the feedback we're getting. This is what it looks like. And it's just like, adult paperbacks.
So we start with a voiceover with, I can't even remember what she says now, because bear in mind we've all seen this once. But it is leading towards, you actually see like some Terminators walking out of the water onto the beach and all the rest of it. And then it cuts to Guatemala. And John and his mother are at a beach bar. And John, who has not changed in 3 years, basically, you had a 13-year-old playing a 10-year-old. He's now a 13-year-old, so they haven't had to age him at all. So,
he still looks the same.
There was a bit, you hear a tiny bit of dialogue from him, because he's chatting up some girl. Or they're practicing, like, the language or something like that with some girl at the bar. And you only hear a little bit of him, but it's an absolute bang-on Edward Furlong. And I don't know whether that's an outtake from something he said at the time or just an extraordinarily good impression.
Might have been a piece of unused dialogue, perhaps.
I have never seen digital face replacement of this quality.
No, I was really impressed. I was like, wow.
I couldn't believe it, because you've got Linda Hamilton, aged 20, by actor's age, about 34. But they've plastered the face onto a perfect copy of her body. It looks exactly like her body looked in 1991. And then you've got Edward Furlong, who just looks like he's come straight off the set of T2 to record this, but it's not. It's his face on some other kid. And when Arnie walks in, it's Arnie from 1991. They've used body doubles from the wall and digital face replacement, and it's virtually perfect.
Yeah, and he turns about nowhere. Linda Hamilton's looking just like she did in T2, and shotgun blast to the chest.
And then a few more shots. I was so happy.
Oh.
Yeah, John Connor is killed. 1998. We haven't said the year, have we? 1998. Bear in mind, T2 set in 1995. So we're 3 years on from Judgment Day. A T-800 catches up with him and kills him at a bar in Guatemala. And Sarah sort of gets some shots off into his back as he walks away, the T-800, and that's it. That's it. That's our little sort of coda to T2. At this point, we've got no idea how a T-800 was there, why, and all the rest of it. But effectively, Skynet was beaten. They were relaxing outside of the country. I imagine they're fugitives, to be fair.
Yeah.
And John Connor is killed, but Judgment Day was averted. We cut forward to 2020. Remember, in the timeline, in 2020, we should be in the midst of the future war. We're not. We're in 2020 as it's going to look in a few months' time. Why they've put it into next year, I don't know, but they did. And
I think considering the political outlook we have here in the UK, it looks pretty accurate.
Well, it's just making the point that when we get to the present day, if you like, because it is more or less, it looks how the present day looks. We know instantly Judgment Day never happened.
Sure.
What did we first see in the future? The present, sorry. What did we first...
This is going to get very confusing.
Well, it's the future us from 1998, I guess.
I think...
Bloke and his girlfriend, isn't it?
Yeah, we get introduced to Grace first time now, don't we?
When she fought, yeah. Because they go off somewhere to...
Yeah, I don't know who we see first. Are we at Dani's apartment block first, or do we see Grace arrive?
I think it's Grace.
Right, interesting updating of the effect, and again, I've got no problem with it now because we find out it's a different company, a different technology, very similar to sort of T2 onwards. It does punch a hole in the world, but everything around it freezes first, which I kind of like. They're not very good at, when they send these things back, they're not very good at sort of adjusting for height. Because she arrives under the pass, and Gabriel Luna's character arrives in midair. So, yeah. Grace arrives naked, as they always do, at just under, effectively, a suburban freeway in Mexico. And a couple are getting it on. That's a tired joke, isn't it? Wow. Yeah, I know, baby. That's been overdone to fuck as a joke.
It wasn't particularly funny, I don't think.
No, it wasn't really. But again, we see her there. The police arrive. She takes all of them down, or at least avoids arrest, and steals the guy's clothes, which is an interesting wrinkle because she is sort of fairly androgynous anyway. You know that she needed the guy's clothes, not the woman's.
Well, she's like tall and sort of
tall and lean.
Yeah.
And not very sort of curvy in any way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
she's arrived. We know nothing about her at the moment. We don't know what she is. And just that we do see sort of Dani, and I think we see Dani and her brother leave for work from an apartment block, and the Rev 9 arrives in the sort of laundry area.
Yeah, sort of just as she left. So, he timed that well.
Yeah, really timed that well. They always seem to land at the right... Well, apart from Grace, but they always seem to land at the right place.
They know exactly where they're going this time. In the original Terminator film, I loved the fact that he had to go back and kill several Sarah Connors because he didn't know where she lived. Didn't know what he was doing. By T3, you had to make allowances for the internet, and so it was quicker to find everybody. But here,
I forgot to mention, obviously, there's a dial-up scene.
What, in T3?
I forgot to mention that.
Yeah. She talks dial-up.
Does talk
opens her mouth and goes, and it's like, dial-up.
There's a few things we forgot to say about T3.
Yeah, there are a few Commander.
The best left, I think.
We forgot to talk about the Sergeant Candy scene, the deleted scene.
Yeah.
Oh, gosh, yeah. My God.
Yeah, basically, there were a little...
I think that requires a whole podcast on its own.
Yeah, apparently that's Samuel L. Jackson's voice.
All right, fun fact.
What, voicing Sergeant Candy?
Yeah.
Didn't know that. Didn't sound like him.
Yeah, because I read that last week. Okay. But also he does the joke from Commando, where she says, "You said you were going to let me go." He says, "I lied." Yeah. From the where he says, "You said you were going to kill me last." I lied.
Right. Okay. So the Rev 9 arrives in kind of a courtyard where all the laundry's up, burns a hole in everything as you'd expect, lands, walks up to a woman who's holding like a check shirt, touches that check shirt, and basically immediately dresses himself. And then think. So Dani and her brother.
It's funny how he just touches one check shirt and then he's got jeans,
trousers, and underwear.
And then she says later that any person touched is killed. But then does that happen? Did that woman die? Did she kill that? Did he kill that woman anyway?
No, he just killed the shirt.
It's not anyone touched. It's anyone mimicked. Yeah, he killed the shirt. The original shirt's dead now.
But they have to. Yeah.
Obviously, when you mimic somebody, you kill the original so that you can take its place.
Well, yeah.
That will come on. He goes. Dani and her brother go off to work in a factory. I can't remember what that factory's making now, but it's a factory.
It's cars.
The brother is immediately going to be fired because he's been replaced by a machine. Makes you think, doesn't it?
Right? You don't say.
Yeah, themes in that. And he turns up at the Rev 9 turns up at they live with their father. He turns up to see the father. He turns up to the door of the Rev 9, and we later find out kills the father because he turns up at he turns up as father at the factory, claiming they've forgotten their lunch. Yeah, all right.
Again.
And then we're straight into some action when the Rev 9 turns up at the factory, because obviously it reveals itself, and at the same time Grace is making her way to that factory. There's no
Terminator infiltration.
There is no attempt at any mystery.
No.
The Terminator turns up, the Protector turns up. They both know exactly where they're going, exactly what they're doing, exactly what each other looks like. When you think about the
first Terminator, where you had a bit with Sarah Connor and the stuff with Ginger and what's going on in her life, and you have like.
But not only that, Michael Biehn did not know what the T-800 looked like.
Yeah.
No,
that's it.
So
it's like a shorthand, really, isn't it? It's just kind of like you have to see these things, and then
they rip off the tech noir scene by you've got the Rev 9 holds a gun towards Dani's head, and suddenly out of nowhere.
Yes.
Yeah, there's a bit of tech noir.
Grace.
I
with a shotgun as well.
I was a little bit concerned at this point. We'd already seen the Grace character, and she moved well, and she looks different as well. I think different is good, providing you're not just ramping up every time. Different isn't good when you go, what do we do with the Terminator this time? Make her a Swiss Army knife? But Grace is just a unique character in look and sort of skill set and everything from what we've seen so far. And the actress is so good that I'm fine with that.
Yeah.
But at this stage, I was a bit concerned because we've got Dani. They go to sack her brother. Her brother she decides to stand up for him and go into the office instead of him, where she knows there's going to be a firing, and fight his case. And that's a shorthand in not a ridiculously long film for what it's going to do, although it is half an hour longer. It's nearly half an hour longer than the Terminator. That is meant to be shorthand for this is a principled, tough young woman, but it doesn't sell that. We haven't really had enough time. And like I say, I think Dani is underserved by this film. I'm not going to criticise the actress because I've not seen enough of her to think she's doing anything particularly bad.
Yeah, it's the film that's shown us enough.
We've got an underwhelming central character, not the lead if you like, but certainly the central character. It's all about her. We've got an underwhelming lead, and we've got a Terminator and Protector that instantly know who each other is and go straight at it. And I'm just thinking, this just feels like at the moment, at this point, it felt like the laziest rinse and repeat I'd ever seen. And I just thought you've done nothing to establish the people, the stakes, anything. All you've done is basically make it a bit more diverse and thrown it into like a different environment because we're in Mexico, not LA. So I was a little bit concerned at this stage. But it gets a little bit better. Basically, the Rev 9 and Grace go at it for the first time. And this isn't bad.
No, but I mean, like all the action, the fight scenes in the film, it suffers to me from that very modern style where it's kind of it's almost like slowed down and sped up at the same time.
There's a lot of slow-mo in the actions.
Yeah, and it just kind of it doesn't have the visceral feel for me. So there wasn't really any time when I was going ow or anything like that. What you normally do, or ooh when someone gets hit or something happens.
I think it doesn't help. It's our 6th Terminator film.
Right.
It's like these creatures just these things just get bashed about all over the place, and then they either like recover or they don't, depending on the model, and that's it.
Yeah, and it just felt the way it was shot as well. There was no attempt to really make it and just anything more than.
Yes, but this is just the Hawes duvet. This is just the opening bit, really. This is just to establish who everybody is, what everyone can do, and that's it. Bizarrely, they've made him sort of look. What's the word? They've given this new Terminator's endoskeleton kind of a graphite look.
Yeah, and half a head.
And half a head, which is just weird. But
yeah, it looks very strange.
It does appear that what for anyone who's not seen the film yet but is listening nonetheless.
Why?
It is well.
Stop now.
Well, no, it'll be out in America long before this is released, but it's possible. We do have people do that. They so
I do that as well sometimes.
Yeah. Well, yeah, but you were on the recording. And
I think I was listening to I don't listen to Now Playing. I haven't listened to them recently. But I think it was before, not the most recent, but the most recent one Star Wars film came out. I hadn't seen it, and I wouldn't be seeing it for the next couple of weeks. As before, obviously, we recorded it. And I thought, I'm just going to listen to their show. And they were like, oh, it's a spoiler podcast, rah, rah, rah. But I knew what I was getting in for, and you kind of knew what to expect, really. But it's just like, I just couldn't help myself. So.
I think it appears it's a T1000 over a T800, sort of. That's the closest we can get to what it is. But it appears that the T1000 bit repairs the T800 bit. And they can split off and act independently of each other. So it attacks as one being, but it can, if necessary, split off. And the liquid metal bit, which still looks like Gabriel Luna most of the time, can run off and do what it does. And like a graphite endoskeleton can do what it does. And if the endoskeleton gets damaged in any way, when it gets covered with that sort of liquid goo again, that repairs whatever it is. Logically, it makes no sense.
I was going to ask, like, so theoretically, if they split, and if you destroy the skeleton, what happens to the liquid version? Does that go, oh shit, my mainframe, and then melts away? Or is that I'm just T1000?
We don't know.
It's a bit weird as well that it's back to knives and stabbing weapons when the TX, which was ostensibly the same thing, had the whole gun in her hand thing.
Yeah, we were hoping it would be like a buzzsaw, a corkscrew, perhaps even
tweezers,
perhaps
even a pizza cutter,
perhaps even a mini compass.
Yes, you never know.
Shit, this one knows where north is.
Bugger.
It does also have the ability to hack computers like the TX, but this is obviously with technology the way things are. It can kind of like track into like sort of cameras and things like that, so you can probably find people like a lot more quickly.
Yeah,
that was the thing, because she chucks her phone out the window, but keeps her own one in a potato chip bag.
Yeah, very odd.
Arnie does address that later. We'll get to that.
He does.
Okay, so big smackdown at the factory, many dead and all the rest of it.
I think that's quite interesting that they have the big fight at the factory at the start rather than at the end, which is kind of what become a mainstay of the first 2 or 3 films. So I thought it was quite interesting there's a factory fight at the beginning rather than at the end. So that's my observation of this opening scene.
The film's back to front, folks.
Well, it's just something that we've traditionally seen in the previous films. They kind of flipped it around, and then obviously at the end of last week's film, it was in a secret underground bunker, and that's obviously similarly to where we end up this time around.
I think I watched it backwards.
Watched it through a mirror.
Yeah,
because it's another chase from there.
When Kyle Reese hoovered jizz out of her, I was shocked.
God.
Anyway,
The vacuums are available.
Yeah. Can you imagine if that was your vacuum?
Dyson.
You just pushed Carl Reese around your house, sucking dirt up.
Is that why he's called the Sperminator?
The Sperminator. Yeah.
Very effective, you know.
Anyway, right. So they get away, and they're chased by the Rev 9. And again, at this point, I'm not too fucking sure because we go straight into a highway chase, which was a mainstay of the first couple in this series. And
where he's in a massive. Is it?
I know. I was just like, oh, I've seen all this before, and then it's separated for the first time, and I thought that makes no sense. I wasn't feeling it at this point. I'm more positive about the film than you, Charlie, but at this point, fuck, I was not enjoying this. Big long action sequence. I don't really want to say much of. It's visceral enough. Grace moves phenomenally well. She's an enhanced human. She was injured. We find out later she was injured, and when they kind of like treated her in the field, she became like an enhanced, and then she was volunteered to be sent back.
And that's when Sarah Connor shows up.
Yeah, they're kind of. Yeah, the brother is killed. The brother is killed during this car chase, and the car's fucked and all the rest of it. And the Rev 9 turns up, takes that truck out completely, and he's about to finish them off. And basically, Sarah turns up, jumps out of the car, looking like a badass.
Doesn't Dee look like that?
Could you? I just. Why am I the only? Well, you guys do as well, but why are we the only people seeing this? The people who think they improved Sarah Connor after the first film are fucking mental. What a one-dimensional fucking idiot of a character they've made this. And she's taking out Terminators no trouble at all. Now, of course, she's not permanently killing the Rev 9, but she has no problem slowing it down and stopping it for a bit at all. So, but there you go.
And then getting out the rocket launcher. Why didn't she try that in the first place?
I know. And then
yeah,
he'll be back.
There's I'll be back.
Wink. Happy Days theme. Yeah, brilliant. So,
although we do have that, was it?
Hey.
Come with me if you don't want to be dead in 30 seconds or something. There's another variation on the come with me if you want to live.
Yeah, come with me or you'll be dead in 30 seconds.
Yeah. If you want to die within 30 seconds, it's just like, hold on, mate, you should have said come with us if you want to live.
It just seems like that doesn't seem like close enough to the line, though. And it's
not quite close enough to be a riff, actually.
Yeah, it's like, well, it's either you say it verbatim, or you don't do it at all.
You don't say it at all, no. Go big or go home.
I'd rather do it this way than say it verbatim.
Yeah, but it just leads to question, well, what's the point in doing it if it's quite distant? It almost feels like you kind of want to say it, but you don't really want to say it. You know,
she's still trying to convince her to.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I don't know. I'm completely against doing anything verbatim, especially after last week's.
Last week's being Charlie.
Oh, sorry. Last week's recorded being Terminator 3.
Right. Okay. Just to be clear, because people go, I don't remember that in Genesis. Well, anyway. Yeah.
I mean, it's a spelling mistake.
They steal. Grace and Dani steal Sarah's car while she's off checking the liquid metal thing is decommissioned, out of commission at the moment. And they drive, but Grace is immediately starting to fade out. She's struggling. When I say fade out, we don't mean sort of Rimmer from Red Dwarf's Hard Light fucking B or something. She's starting to like.
May as well be.
Red Wolf podcast
Let's go get her parents to kiss.
She's going. Yeah, she's going. Yeah, he suddenly. Yeah. Earth Angel is being played so badly.
Daddy's got a photo of her. She's fading. Yeah.
So because she's an augment, her metabolism is super high.
She's designed.
So she needs all these drugs to.
Again, why send her back for fuck's sake?
Yeah.
Basically, if you don't kill it quickly, you're finished. Great. So you sent her back nude to a time without the tech you need, and basically said you got 10 minutes. Fuck off, right? So
surely then your number one plan is like obviously to track the Terminator would be to track the Terminator and just have a fight to the death with it. That's your number one plan. and then you say run to when you find Dani, just tell us to get the fuck out there.
Or get there and stockpile the shit out of the food and drugs you need.
Oh yeah, true.
But anyway, they head for. I think they end up in a pharmacy because she is like collapsing. She's pouring with sweat. I mean, performance-wise, I was sold at this point. Really, I was just like, all right, she's got me. She's good. They need a lorry load of fucking drugs into her, and they hold up this place with a gun, and then they're helped very kindly. And then what? I think
very
Sarah,
kindly at gunpoint.
I know, but afterwards he's like, let me help you.
They get outside and Sarah shows up in another car.
In another car, and they're taking
another station wagon.
They're taken to a hotel. Not in a boom chicka wow wow sense.
And there's a lot of antagonism between Sarah and Grace.
Oh, fucking Sarah's a twat.
Yeah, which I really didn't like.
She turns up and she's an asshole to everybody. It's like, you know, I know John was killed, but like in the timeline of this film, it's 22 years before, and you've been in one of their positions, and the other one is in the position of the man you fell in love with. Don't stop being an asshole. So they head to a hotel, and this is where we get all the exposition, really. So what do we get told? Sarah tells them all about. It's that scene as well, which I think is in some of the trailers. I saved 3 billion people. You're welcome.
What have you? Yeah,
you're welcome.
You're welcome.
That enough of a resume for you?
Yeah, like fuck off. I'm sorry, my sort of thought-provoking observations on this film are really going beyond fuck off. I appreciate
every scene.
That's the thing. There's nothing. I mean, the idea of Grace being the middle ground between the Terminators and the humans is at its heart an interesting concept, but that is never touched on at all.
Well, I never got the concept of like how, like, what exactly is her, like, how is she, how is she made up? Has she got like sort of like a metal under her skin? What does that do? What's her capabilities?
They had the X-rays, didn't they, when they were?
Yeah.
Have we got to that bit yet where she gets?
We haven't. The X-rays quite a bit later on, actually, when they're in the prison.
Yeah.
But it does reveal her as it's a bit Logan-ish.
Yeah, she says she's.
Yeah, I did get a Logan vibe.
So generally, kind of, metal skeleton enhanced.
It's.
Probably
I mean, the idea that ultimately we needed top technology to beat top technology is not discussed at all. The film has no real point of view. The film doesn't. It's not. There's no auteur element to this at all.
I mean, as well as that, there's all the stuff about fate that would be interested to look at as well.
There's no discussion about the fact that like the future's almost been completely fucking rebooted into like something similar but different.
All you get is no fate but what we make again.
Well, it's just when
buzzword.
She says, "Well, I've never heard it." When they're in the hotel room, and she says, John Connor, you know, I gave birth to him, you know, and Skynet, remember previous films, Skynet, and when she says like, "I've never heard any of those names," well, actually, it's Legion. We just go, all right then, and that's it.
There's no introduction. There's no kind of explanation of it. It's like, oh, all right then, fine.
It's that there's no shock or surprise in it.
I just thought, obviously, Legion, we are many. I just kind of thought of the Red Dwarf character.
Yes.
I know that's a stupid thing to say. I know. That's immediately where my brain went.
Where Arnold tries to buy the light switch as fine art. Yes.
What do you call this piece?
Yeah, she says Legion is an AI for cyber warfare.
Yes, yeah.
Kind of the same thing as in T3.
Very much so. It is it's the same thing, really. And it's at least an interesting concept to say you take down a threat, but there was an inevitability about the threat. Judgment Day isn't inevitable per se, but the conditions that led to Judgment Day will kind of arise in different forms. Whether they lead to the same thing's a different matter. But if the problem that caused Judgment Day was Cyberdyne creating Skynet, which was effectively technology can do it better, humanity always leads towards technology can do something better. Therefore, there's an inevitability about it, be it 50 years' time, 20 years' time, or 10 years on from when it was going to be. And that is at least somewhat interesting, but it's spat out it's spat out as exposition to explain how we can get another Terminator film that isn't about John Connor. Which they have to kind of do. I'm not really got kicking at it on that basis, but it is a little bit like there's better ideas here than you're exploring. And T2 at least did try to address some of these things.
Yeah.
I think it did in a heavy-handed fashion in some ways, but you can see in some respects it's no surprise that the maker of T2 went on to make Avatar.
No.
You know, this guy with his curiosity and draw to technology, but at the same time slight fear and caution in its use and so on. So Grace is actually from the year 2042, not 2029. So even though we're 35 years on from the Terminator and 36 years, because this is next year, 36 years on from the Terminator, 25 years on from T2, but the timeline has actually only shifted 13 years, roughly. Sarah immediately believes Dani is her. Dani is going to give birth to, Jorge Connor, right?
Yeah, this moment was.
Yeah, it's really, really dismissive from Sarah Connor, isn't it? I was like kind of surprised.
Yeah, but in the whole why Grace didn't tell her, because I know that obviously that comes up later as a point of I should have told you. And it's like, well, why didn't you? Especially because it made me kind of hate the film.
Well, it's the idea you wouldn't be able to take it if I told you it was you. It's like, well, she's going to have to find out at some point.
Yeah, because I mean, as soon as it did that, and I really had they better change. That something better happen, because if it just turns out to be her giving birth to a bloke again, I'm going to be really pissed off. And thankfully it didn't. But the fact that it made me think that in the first place, kind of, it just made no sense to me.
Well, I was really confused because I was always in the automatic assumption that Dani was the John Connor, not the Sarah Connor.
Yeah, because she's so young, and it's only like 22 years. Yeah, it's so.
Years. I was always under that assumption anyway.
If we're in 2020, and you immediately say you've come back from 2042, that's only 22 years. She's not pregnant as we speak. Even if there was some bizarre,
she could have a 15-year-old going to save the future.
Exactly. I mean, even if it mimicked the Terminator and she managed to get knocked up during this film, how that would suddenly happen, I don't know, when none of the characters can do that.
Well, Grace is an augment.
Yeah, well, yeah, augmented with sperm, right? At the very least, you can have a 21-year-old. She's only in her teens or early 20s herself, which means she's around 40 around the time that happens. It is self-evidently, as far as I'm concerned, her. What I thought was lazy about it is that it was the film advertising its own diversity by drawing attention to it. So what it was doing was basically having sort of a white middle-aged woman say, you are the mother of a man who's going to save the world, and then later in the film going, see, it's not that. And that's a little bit lazy. I never made the assumption. When she said in the film, so you're me and you're going to give birth to this, I'm thinking 22 years, no she isn't.
Yeah.
And it wasn't a mystery, it was just immediately, well, no.
Yeah, I think I just assumed it was Hollywood and they were that stupid.
Yeah, I mean, you could tell they were holding something back, but I was just a little bit, all right, so that's what you do? Okay, that's whatever, but yeah, my automatic assumption was that she was the John Connor. She was like the person that's going to start the revolution. But what I what they could have done else, other than like it's always the military leader of the resistance. But what if it's just something as simple as someone who started the movement, someone who gave like an all-inspiring speech or something? Do you know what I mean? Like someone who has the essence that sparked everything off. Without her, it doesn't happen.
Well, the series has always had the fundamental flaw that like one person is absolutely everything.
Yeah.
You know, if John Connor had like trod on a landmine in the first year of the war, that's the human effort over, is it?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? No one else around him has any training, ideas, or abilities whatsoever.
Well, that's what's good about this, is the fact that it does, like the fact that there's always going to be a Skynet. There's always going to be someone who leads the human resistance. There's always going to be someone. And
we do at least, we see a future. We see effectively the equivalent of sort of John finding a young Kyle, in that we do see her finding a young Grace, and they're scavenging around in old apartment blocks and things like that, and trying to hide from things, and there's hardly any food, and you know, most of them have died of starvation. She said millions died, and that was an interesting piece of dialogue when Grace says millions died, and I thought, you've undersold that. And then she went, and then the food ran out, and then billions. And I was like, oh yeah, okay, brilliant. Whereas Judgment Day was always like a big hit where 3 billion die straight away. And I think actually that's a slightly better reimagining of the future. It isn't just about this. But she actually says, Grace, nothing happened on day 1 or day 2 or day 3. You know what I mean? And then we see like planes drop out the sky and things like that. It's a much slower growing problem in this version of the timeline. And I like it, but bear in mind, the Terminator is a Cold War film. The Terminator is a Cold War era film where we were worried about the bomb, whereas this isn't. Where this is much more about the crawling threat of technology. So it is different to reflect a different time. So where do we go from here? At this point, do we find out yet about the sort of how she finds Terminators and all that?
Yeah, I think, doesn't she tell them about the texts?
She keeps getting texts every few months, she sort of says, and each message ends with the words, "For John." And it will be coordinates, and when she goes there, it's a Terminator to kill. She's got apologies anyone who's seen the film more than once or more recent to recording than we have, and all that sort of thing. So we're going to get details wrong and in the wrong order, I'm sure. But she hides her cell phone, her mobile phone, in a crisp packet because the foil stops the signal, so she can't be tracked. Arnie later says to her, "If you're going to put it in foil, put it in foil, i.e. fucking leave it in there." He's tracking her because she takes it out every now and again to use it. Which isn't... I liked the film for that sort of thing, in that, like... If this had been like an Orsi and Kurtzman script, they would have explained exactly what Arnold meant there. But you can infer it quite easily. What he's saying is, yeah, fine, you're hiding your phone in there, but every now and again you're taking it out and using it. I can find where you are. But the film doesn't spell it out, it just implies it. Right, this is where I do get a bit confused. So we know who everybody is now. We've had various flashbacks and all the rest of it. Where do they go from here? The Red 9...
She hacks in.
Who hacks in?
She hacks into the... she hacks into a phone, doesn't she? Grace hacks into Sarah's phone.
That's it. They set off again, and she hacks into the phone.
And they find out that
that's
the
to reverse engineer where the messages come from.
Yeah, because she's got like the corners tattooed on her.
Exactly. Yeah.
And it's in Texas.
It's in Texas. So
Laredo in Texas. Yeah.
That's it. They've got
they decide they need to get across the border,
and they need to call in favors. And amazingly, Dani's people Dani knows someone who knows someone, like an uncle or something. So they head off there. They head off to sort of there to get passage.
Mm.
That's where we see Grace cut a fly in half in the air.
That's a cool scene. Although I feel bad for the fly, but it looks cool.
It's not a real fly, Becca.
No, I know, but still, it looks pretty cool.
They went to the same agency as did the double-taking pigeon.
Yeah. and the
we need a fly who's flexible about its
Doesn't mind being chopped in
integrity.
half.
Yes.
They have a short lifespan anyway.
Yeah.
But no, I think that's a very cool scene, I thought.
See, it just got me thinking of Karate Kid and Mr. Miyagi just catching a fly.
Yeah, literally catching a fly in the chopsticks. Ciao. Or catching a nut.
So, the... What's the Terminator called, this one?
The Rev 9.
The Rev 9, right. Yeah, he's...
We're to Rev 9.
He's, like, sort of scanning them through, like, CCTV and tracks them on the train, so he's on the case, he kind of knows where they're going. And he gets a drone, doesn't he? And gets them, gets the patrol looking for him as a wanted fugitive.
Yeah, first off, he gets CCTV footage of them at the camp before they go in and start even getting passage.
Yeah.
So he knows they're there. But he can search, like, everywhere almost immediately. And it's just racing through his mind as images, and it will zero in what he wants. He does see them walking through a valley, sends a drone after them. Isn't that... I get confused. I'm really getting confused.
So they get towards the border, and then he sees the drone, and then the drone contacts the police, and then they go to arrest him, and then he sends the drone down to try and kill her, but Grace gets in the way and takes the brunt of the explosion from the drone.
That's right. And then they're all basically taken off to like this border prison, really.
Yeah.
This is where we get a little bit of background on Grace, but we also get, like, honestly, there's something about Sarah Connor. Them having Sarah Connor in, it's like they captured John Dillinger or something. Yeah. It's like she's such a fucking legend, this 60-year-old woman. You know what I mean? It's quite funny.
It's funny because it's like Luke Skywalker in The Last Jedi, only how the fans some of the fans wanted him to be like.
Yes.
Versus how he actually felt.
Yeah. Which, for anyone who hasn't heard our Star Wars series, we were all... Charlie was the biggest fan of all of us of The Last Jedi. We were all fairly positive, though, with despite the fact it's widely hated out there. But there is an element of... I don't think this is everyone's complaint, but there is certainly a subset of people who didn't like The Last Jedi because Luke Skywalker wasn't the lantern-jawed sort of teacher of Jedi. You know, he wasn't running like a cheesy Jedi Academy or something. There's an element of that in what Sarah Connor is shown as here, how they're all reacting to her. She's this legend, and I just think it's the film drinking.
She's public enemy number one.
Well, they're just getting drunk on their own hype.
Yeah, because didn't she say at one point she was on America's Most Wanted?
For blowing up a fucking couple of buildings? I doubt it. There's people in America that have killed fucking, eaten people and shit. I don't know, whatever. She had her own episode of America's. She just says everything with such, like, supposed sass, and it sounds shit. She's like saying, I had my own episode of, it's like, all right, whatever. And of course, the Rev 9 has sort of cornered them there, so he heads for the prison, and we see sort of scenes of him like appearing to be somebody else and then killing people and things like that.
I love how the Rev 9 gets through the security. He just says like, "Oh, I've got a damaged hip. I served it all. Oh, well, good enough. So the next time I have to walk through a metal detector, I'll just say." Hip
replacement.
Hip replacement.
2 tours of Afghanistan.
2 tours of Afghanistan.
Yeah. That'll see me through, don't it?
2 tours of Syria.
Well, he's a uniformed officer, so it was a little bit like, on a judgment call, the guy went, well, yeah, fair enough, you're a uniformed officer.
Yeah, he's not going to say anything. He's like, oh, yeah, thank you for your service.
But yeah, he'll go into he went into one of the buildings as a woman and just said hi, and all the rest of it, and then just stabs him in the neck and stuff like that. So he's now in the building, and they're all sort of cornered. Grace is sort of, I don't know what terminology we want to use for it, but she's faded out again, basically, hasn't she? But she's got hold of.
She had some shrapnel, didn't she?
Yeah,
sort of trapped in. Ooh, it was quite gruesome. To be fair, this scene, I generally thought, oh, they've had it. Quite frankly, I was one of the few scenes where I was literally like, oh no. So.
And then they look at the X-ray.
Yeah, discover that she is in fact Wolverine.
They look at the X-ray and find she's Wolverine. Yeah. She does have a couple of syringes on her. That's shorthand in the film as well. That she's got a syringe on her. She can magically be all right.
Shoved down the back of her trousers or something like that.
I'm glad they at least said in dialogue, "Great body search, guys," because it's like these syringes are fucking massive.
And they're really obvious.
Unless she'd hidden them in her cavities, there is absolutely no way they would not have been found. But the story dictates she must have them. She's fond of smashing people's heads against walls as well, isn't she? There's a few of those in this film. And she's like, sorry. But yeah, they managed to get out, and we've got the second set piece, basically, the Rev 9 versus them. As Sarah, because she's super most wanted, gets taken to a different area. She's going to the senior wing, I think. So she's handcuffed and all the rest of it, but it doesn't stop her being a badass, does it, folks?
Oh no, because when all hell breaks loose, she breaks free.
That easy.
And she gets a free EMP.
A free EMP, yeah.
From some guy.
Oh yeah, that later on.
We'll get to that, yeah, we'll get to that.
Oh no, sorry, yeah.
Because she's got contacts, she's just got contacts everywhere.
Yeah, spoiler. I'd love the fact that like they get the EMP and then the Terminator comes and they don't use it there and then.
No, that would be the.
It's like, oh no, we've got to run away first. Like, why? Just fucking okay, just.
Yeah, and then when they fly off and have a look at it, it's damaged. You expect that some mothers do have them theme to play. It's just like, oh, I missed him. Right. So anyway, some mothers do have them. Coming up when I can find a clip later. So they get away via, is it a helicopter?
Yeah.
Sarah gets out at the last minute and that sort of stuff. Again, whenever you get Grace versus the Rev 9, everyone moves really well. They drop into slow motion without it being offensive, which is quite a gift in itself. That's rare, you know? So there are positives to the film, certainly.
They are there.
So so where to go for there? So yeah, basically
they go to Texas, don't they?
Yes.
Find
Carl.
I get confused because they are on we passed the bit where they're on the top of the train and all that sort of thing. But
that's it. Yeah.
Yeah, there was a bit of backstory and all the rest of it there. I was her and all that. Right when Sarah was at her worst.
Yeah. Because Sarah keeps kind of projecting her on other people, especially when she goes, "You're John." But they go to Texas and meet Carl.
They get to Texas.
Hilarious.
And, it's a little sort of. It's a different design, but think sort of where Tony Stark was living in Endgame. You know what I mean? Log cabin. First thing we see is a van, Carl's Draperies.
Mm-hmm.
That makes sense, but there you go. Opens the door. It's Arnold Schwarzenegger, and again, Sarah doesn't fucking think. She's immediately about to lose her shit and all the rest of it. And it ends up with, I think, Grace talking to the T-800, talking to Carl, while Dani goes off, and we have a scene with Sarah, and it's like, I'm forgetting what John looks like and all the rest of it, but none of that carries any real weight. I think part of the fact, what we bring into it, I think John's a fucking idiotic character in that incarnation anyway, but we get a bit of background. The explanation is he killed John. It is the same model, or the same chassis, the same one. And he had no purpose, so he looked after a woman who was running away from a guy who was threatening to kill their son and all the rest of it. And he looked after them and raised them as a family. He does explain, because she says, how does she not realise you're £400? And he says, it's not a physical relationship. And he said, raising a family helped me see what I'd taken from you. So...
Yeah, he does actually grow a conscience.
He can even stroke a dog without the dog losing its shit.
Yeah, I know.
So what? The dog recognises intention now? How does that work? But anyway,
that dog, I thought didn't move, barely moved a muscle. I just think it looked very weird, as if it was. I mean, obviously moved a little bit, but just like the way it was standing, like stock still. I thought that could have been a stuffed dog, and nobody would have been any the wiser.
It just makes me wonder if there's all these Terminators that have been sent back in time to do various tasks for Skynet and are now living in Middle America.
Yeah.
No, I had the same thought. Actually, I thought, oh, they've obviously been sent to these little jobs, and now they're just living out their retirement.
They probably got like a nice little community going, like sort of
It's the ex-Terminator group on Facebook, or group chat on WhatsApp.
Yeah. It's fairly.
Dave's not convinced.
I don't. It doesn't make a lot of sense. I mean, I've broken the programming, but that still led to like desire and want.
Yeah.
And
it's kind of
smiling.
Yeah, it doesn't really match up, does it?
Genuinely enjoying his family and showing affection and stuff like that. And I think, God bless you for trying, actually, because you've tried to put a new wrinkle on the character rather than just another chassis turning up. And it's interesting, but I don't think it makes a whole lot of sense at all. Why would he want in any way? I think he would just decommission himself.
Yeah, and then apparently he sends the text to Sarah to give her purpose.
Yeah, that was to give you purpose. And it's like, why would you care? She was collateral damage from your mission.
Yeah, exactly.
Did you send, had you been the original Terminator, would you be sending flowers to the widows of all those cops you killed? It doesn't actually make a lot of sense to me. What sells it is he's funny. He even says at one point, and I'm very funny, and stuff like that. And, when they go in and all the guns there. On the page, I wouldn't have liked this line. He said, but for this, we needed it for this, this, and this. Oh, and it's Texas. So there are positives to him, and he's really good in it. And you can see Arnold Schwarzenegger, the father, in this role. He's bringing himself to it rather than just playing another T-800. So I like it. It doesn't make any sense, though. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm the same. If you think about it, it's a bit daft, but Arnie sells it.
Yeah, it's a bit silly, but I'd say Arnie gives it a good go, doesn't he? I think he does. He does sell it.
So I think the next thing is they start sort of planning what they're going to do, and the symbol, the sort of the idea comes around sort of EMP. If we can get it near an EMP, just get it here and get an EMP set off. And they decide they've got to go, like, Sarah knows someone, because of course she does. And they've got to go like 80, 90 miles or something to go and get this EMP from a military bloke she knows. Because the military spend a lot of time around people who've been fugitives for 2.5 decades.
They're school friends.
I just, every time Sarah came to the fore in any of this, I just wanted to shut the fuck up and step into the background and let us focus on the new characters, because her usefulness in the plot here is just so contrived.
Yeah.
Somebody who's been a fugitive since the mid-90s can get like EMPs off some fucking like general or colonel or whatever it is. Fuck off. That's absolutely ludicrous. But they do go and meet in some aircraft hangar somewhere and effectively just get this EMP. And as they get it, the Rev 9 turns up.
Dun, dun, dun.
Yeah, and you think like, well, why don't you just use it? It's like, oh, perfect, time this well.
Yeah,
detonate.
Perfect. No, run, everyone. I think they've got to be in very close proximity to it, but it's because plot, isn't it?
Yeah, and again, he's in a police helicopter.
Yeah. Oh yeah. They get away. They end up getting into a plane, don't they?
Yeah.
The car, whatever they're in, the car gets too damaged or something, so they get into a plane.
With Humvees inside.
I love the fact that immediately, like, he's in the refueling one behind them. It's just the continuity. It's suddenly like the Playboys or something. They're suddenly on a bike, and then it's a car. And oh my god, he's followed us.
Oh dear.
If I could just get the sun's rays on.
It's literally like that.
Yeah. But none of them had a bottle of champagne, so they couldn't shoot it back at the end. The plane sequence is all right. It felt a little bit like the ending, although that was a train. It felt like the ending of Dark Phoenix, though.
Yeah.
Visually, it looked a little bit like that as well. But at least you've got everything flying around in different directions and sort of gravity taking hold in different places at different angles and stuff like that. This is okay. It's a new wrinkle. We haven't seen it in the series before. Yeah. I think it's finally at this point Sarah realizes she doesn't have to like kill the T-800 now. You know, after
So,
it
yeah, he might be useful.
Yeah.
Surprise, surprise.
God almighty, just her IQ's fucking bollocks since she first went into Mexico in the second film. So, the EMP's damaged. It's basically been shot through. They get away. They manage to get. Yeah, they basically land in a. There's a Humvee basically in the military plane, isn't there? So Arnie's left on the plane fighting the Rev 9.
Yeah.
Sarah and Dani and Grace are all in the Humvee.
Yeah, and so they parachute, don't they?
Well, Grace is outside it, really, but yeah. And they parachute out of the plane while Arnie and the Rev 9 have a fight on it.
It's very Fast and Furious, but yeah.
Very,
it's a little bit Fast and Furious, isn't it?
Oh, yeah, the 18 film, yeah.
Yeah.
But, 18 movie, very...
They should have had to build the Humvee out of...
Living Daylights.
Yes.
I was expecting a line like he got the boot or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, for me, the whole it gave us very much Daylights vibe for me, I'm afraid.
And they land by a power plant, don't they? And there's like...
Yeah.
They go underwater.
A power plant by like... What is that? It's a bit Hoover Dam-ish, but it's not as big as the Hoover Dam.
Sort of a bit like Transformers.
Which one?
The one that features the Hoover Dam. I can't remember.
I think that was the first one, I think.
Is it?
First one, yeah.
Yeah.
A hydro power plant, that's what it is.
All right, okay.
Thank you.
I don't know what I want to say
Fun
from now on, to be honest with you, because
They fight a bit.
they fight a bit. I don't like the last act very much.
They go.
The only thing I like about it is, and I've noticed this in films right the way back to that Fantastic Four film, the first Tim Story one, in that you've got to give everybody something to do.
Yeah.
But when you do it wrong, it just looks really, really contrived. And if you watch the 2005 Fantastic Four film, the way they take Doctor Doom down at the end, it just looks like they've gone, right, what are we going to have them do? What are we going to have them do? And it looks really, really forced. What I will say is in the final battle, they quite organically give everyone something to do. I mean, it will have been thought about, but that's not bad. And the action's progressing all right. I think the only thing I will say about the Rev 9 generally is they managed to land blows quite easily and put heavy damage on him quite easily, and then he recovers quite easily. So it makes a lot of the action a bit anticlimactic, because they can knock the absolute living shit out of him with no problem whatsoever, but he'll be fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then they use the Terminator 3 ending.
Yeah, they've got an EMP from Grace's power source.
Yeah.
So when she's mortally damaged, or nearly mortally damaged at least, Dani has to cut it out of her and get it to the T-800, get it to Carl. Well, actually, she tries to do it herself, doesn't she?
Yeah, she does it herself.
Yeah.
And then
eventually,
Sarah saves her from Arnie does it, doesn't he?
And they go into
so this time, Arnold face fucks a Latino chick.
Oh dear.
That's pretty much what happened.
And then they fall into something.
I mean, it's even more phallic this time as well, isn't it? It's got a pointy end.
Yeah.
It's not more molten lava, but it's close. It feels like
Yeah, it's
that.
similar.
It's the same basic principle. They fall into a pit and he just holds him in place while they
Falls into a
basically
vat.
die. While they die
Vacuum.
together.
The why that power source does anything, I don't know. I mean, at least with the like in T3,
Yeah.
like you understood that it had like a
It
little
overloaded.
powerful
It
explosion.
overloaded because you can damage it and
Yeah.
overload it. Why someone would be fitted with an EMP as a power source, I don't know. If you trip and fall funny, everyone goes back to the fucking Dark Ages in a 6 mile radius. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's just, yeah, drop Grace on GoldenEye, on
It is pretty much GoldenEye, isn't it?
yeah, fire her at London, inflation adjusted from 1945.
But if that was part of the part of a get up, if you actually had an EMP, surely you'd just be like you'd go around like sort of you jump straight into a bunch of Terminators and just detonate it.
Well, the other thing as well is our only mission, and it's a kind of a suicide run, is to protect Dani from that Terminator.
Yeah.
Just fucking pile onto him first time you see him.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Or when you're fitter, more well, and more healthy, see if there's anything in it you can remove or repurpose or something. Yeah. Where what's actually happened is they needed an extra action sequence to take that. They needed something to do after they got Carl in the film beyond just one climactic action sequence. So they dreamt up this EMP bit, and it's like, well, we got this EMP, but that doesn't allow for anyone to make a grand fucking sacrifice, and we need to kill Grace off because there's a different protector each time. So they damaged the EMP, and then it's like, we need another EMP. What if Grace is one? That's almost certainly the thought process. So yeah, that's not terrific, I have to say.
Yeah, so what wins out in the end is technology.
Yeah, so the lesson we take from this film is technology. Yay!
One thing we haven't mentioned is the sort of the flashback of the reveal where we see Dani as the resistance leader, and is the one who.
And what an inspiring figure she looks.
I mean, look, I'm not knocking in the actors here.
Facelift.
I'm not knocking any of the actors here, but that whole scene looked like a kid breaking up a fight at school at a playground. And this is the start of the resistance again.
And then the world is inspired.
Yeah,
yeah. It's such a boring setting, and it's just.
I understand the whole diversity thing. I understand making it a woman. I understand making it someone you wouldn't necessarily expect. But when we saw John Connor at the start of T2, which I think we should never have seen him, to be fair, but we saw him and it was like, yeah, you can see how he's like the guy, the person. When we see her, you go, no, she was selling fags around the back of fucking Summerfield last week, wasn't she?
Behind the bike shop.
That's cigarettes to our North American listeners.
Yes.
What, she wasn't selling bottoms? That's not what we meant.
And then they go and watch Grace at school, which is kind of weird.
That's just to sort of tug at the heartstrings. She doesn't know. She's a child and she doesn't know what's ahead. And
of course, they're driving away in a Jeep like they did in the first film.
Yeah, and then they drive off to train. You've got to train. They all heroic figures need sunglasses. They're very, very light sensitive. I did the little touch.
Plus, it looks cool.
I did like the little touch where Arnold did not put on the sunglasses. He went to.
Yeah.
That he looked.
You didn't see him do it, do you? So.
Well, he notices the leather jacket, then he goes to put it on, and he doesn't. The glasses, and it's just that I'm no longer that being.
He's not that kind of badass.
He's not that being anymore. He's still Carl.
They do that weird American cliche where it's usually kind of at the end of films or once someone's gone through a kind of particular transformation where this shorthand for being badass is someone being able to catch keys in their hands.
Yeah.
With one hand.
Yeah, because
Well, yeah, it's in RoboCop, isn't it?
Yeah, it is in RoboCop.
Yeah.
It is a little bit RoboCop styly.
And that's it. That's the film basically. We're underway, sort of trying to prepare Dani for her role as sort of saviour of humanity. The film doesn't really. We're in a strange position. Well, it doesn't sell that, but there's also the element of the first film wasn't about stopping anything. It was about protecting the chance, the opportunity to have that saviour who's going to be there in the future to do what he's already done in the future timeline. It was only from the sequel onwards they started sort of, we can stop it. And then Terminator 3 immediately took a big shit on that. This film, I don't know what it's trying to say, actually. We're still in the keep the saviour safe mode.
Well, it just
So I'm
wants-
presuming
just
any
wants-
I'm presuming any potential sequels would go the route of how do we stop Legion?
Yeah, because this film the end of it is just wants to mimic the first Terminator.
Yeah, yes, it is. It's just they're
There's
going
Jeep,
off to get
here's the
ready.
Terminator theme.
But
There's a storm
unfortunately,
coming.
at the end of the Terminator, you had a pregnant young woman looking a little bit uneasy. A little
Yeah.
bit uneasy, but she was still fundamentally Sarah Connor. Here, you've got a young lady being driven off by fucking, I don't like the Sarah Connor character after the first film, to be honest. Driven off by a walking fucking cliche in military garb to train. And you just think that's going to be a pleasant fucking time hanging around with that fucking idiot. But there you go. Final thoughts on it from me. I don't have an awful lot to add. It's a 3-star film. We've just picked it to death, but it's following a classic, arguably 2 classics, depending on your view. We have to see it in light of the first 2 films, because it sets itself up as a direct sequel to the first 2 films. You can't say, well, saying it's better than Genesis. Well, yes, it is, but it's not in the same timeline as Genesis now. It follows on from The Terminator and Terminator 2 Judgment Day. It stands up to neither of them. The fact that it beats 3 absolutely abysmal sequels that followed is not the greatest credit to it. It's a 3-star film, but a lot of not amazing films are 3-star films. Do you know what I mean? It's just basically saying it's competent. It's competent enough. It gets its points across well enough. The action is clearly and defined and easy to follow. Most people in it are fairly good. Linda Hamilton is not. The new lead is disappointing, but I think a lot of that is her being underserved. I think the Grace character is absolutely film saving. I think without Mackenzie Davis in this film, I wonder what the hell it would have been at all. And it's the most competent film we've seen in decades from this series. But this used to be smart, superior sci-fi. Now it's relatively ill thought through fan service, and that's not good enough. But it's okay.
I'd give it a generous 2.5. I can't really see anything sci-fi in it anymore. It just feels like it's just a kind of standard action film with the kind of the trappings. But it's just, it's reruns of the previous films. Taking bits out, and it's okay. It's not terrible, but nothing particularly works for me, and I'm not invested hardly at all. Grace is the only character that really kind of invested me, and she's kind of treated quite badly by the end, when the fact that it probably should have been Sarah dying. But,
the obvious point is to sacrifice Sarah, but they haven't thought it through.
Yeah, I was expecting that to happen. I was like, it's gonna be Sarah Connor who gives her life.
Yeah, I was quite surprised that she made it through.
But then you do that, and then they want to make another Wall Street film. Michael Douglas ain't available, and
They'll just get her in.
you've just like pissed on your contingency.
Stay tuned for Ant-Man and the Wasp 3 with Linda Hamilton as Hank Pym.
As Hank Pym.
Stick a goatee on her.
Yeah.
Yeah, so whatever. I don't really care.
Fair enough. What about you guys?
Yeah, I'm kind of... Well, I'm not as down on it. I actually thought it was, okay. It was enjoyable enough watch, but I kind of share the same criticisms, quite frankly. I think it's just very... It's very lazily thought through. And I think the biggest crime is the fact that these new characters like Dani and Grace, I don't think they're given enough screen time, or they're not given anything to flesh out on their. That's the core of the story. Most of it goes to Sarah Connor, which while I like some parts of it, but she does act like a complete dick through most of it. So there is that. Arnie's great as ever. The action's fine. But yeah, that's just it. It's just, to me, it was just a bit of a mixed bag and just fine generally.
Can't really add more to that. To be honest, I think you guys have pretty much said it all. So, however, I rate it 3.5.
3.5.
No,
actually,
no, that's very generous. No,
Yeah.
3 out of 5.
Yeah, no, I'd go along with that. But so yeah, Well, I don't see, in Rotten Tomatoes terms, 3 is fresh as far as I'm concerned because it's like 60%. So if I were accredited on that site, I'd be one of the freshes. But I don't see 3 stars as a massive compliment. I think films kind of start around there, conceptually speaking, and they either impress you to do better or they really disappoint you to do worse. And Terminator Dark Fate did neither. It kind of just limply sat there, so it sort of stayed where it started. It's like, that's competent enough. But there you go. I think my biggest problem with it is, though, which we're arguing about star ratings, but I don't know that we've got the in-depth knowledge that allows us to make such calls. What do you think, Chris?
I'm just looking at the Rotten Tomatoes, and it's like sort of 66%.
Oh, really?
And Joker's
That's
60, and Joker's 69. So it's only 3% difference between this and Joker.
Joker would be 69, that little trickster.
Well, it would, wouldn't it? Yeah, that's typical.
That's
I think that's done on purpose,
effect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They've done it on purpose.
Joker's a better film than Terminator Dark Fate.
Yeah.
Mind you, when I saw Terminator Dark Fate last time, it was on 58. That's gone up slightly.
It's gone
But
up.
I actually think Joker's getting too hard a time for. I don't think it helped the director came out and said a load of stuff that made him sound like an asshole. But also the fact that it hews so close to King of Comedy. I think there is a percentage of opinion out there that just sees it as a bit of a rip-off with nothing actually to say of its own. But on performances alone, it's a better film than this. But Chris, this doesn't address the issue of your knowledge level.
No, it doesn't, because I don't know enough about this film.
Why are you trying to avoid the subject because you're a bit embarrassed?
Well,
when you started banging on about Joker, you were like, people know how little I know about this.
Well,
but a twat.
I don't think briefly bringing up its Rotten Tomato score as banging on. Bringing up its Rotten Tomato score once.
Yeah.
As banging on about.
Yeah, just Chris, you're like a broken record. Admittedly, a broken record we've only just put on and haven't got to the skippy bit yet.
Yeah.
But we can just sense that like it's going to be Joker from now on. Bit like you with football, which you also watched once.
I will say that the 6 degrees of separation was incredibly easy this time.
Go on then, let's have it.
From Please Sir, the star John Alderton.
Yeah.
He was in. It's actually quite a good film called Clockwork Mice. Where he was like I think he was a head teacher or one of the teachers at a special needs school. And one of the other teachers in that film was a man called Art Malik.
Oh, Art Malik. I know about him.
Who was the villain in True Lies.
Of course.
The terrorist.
I see where you're going with this.
Yes, with a certain Mr. Schwarzenegger. So yeah, that was easy.
So we don't have to do the full 6 steps because I was trying. The other day, I did this the other day, but I got confused because of our recording schedule. I was like, "Yes, done it." Then I realised I'd linked "Please Sir" to Terminator Salvation, which is
oh well, never mind.
But I did it. I had to artificially put steps in.
No.
Because John Alderton was in an episode of Doc Martin, as was Sigourney Weaver, who was in Avatar who was in Avatar with Sam Worthington. So that was really, really easy. But I'm putting extra steps in, like Lucy Punch and Simon Pegg, and I was like,
wow.
Because the object of the game is to do it in as few steps as possible.
All right, okay.
But 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon, surely.
Yeah, so six degrees was just the arbitrary kind of.
Oh, it's just an arbitrary number. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to pick the sitcom for Salvation.
5 degrees of Kevin Bacon.
Coming
next week. Are you being served?
Yeah, what was that? What was that one where there were just like a bunch of guys sat on a ward, like in the hospital? Oh, that was the one.
What was it called?
Only when I laugh.
Yeah, that was.
I don't know why I know that one. I think I have seen it.
That had Peter Bowles in it, didn't it? I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the guy from To the Man Born. What's his name?
Oh yeah, that guy.
Yeah.
Peter Bowles.
Yeah.
And
All right.
that is it.
like that in it as well.
Yeah, and James Brolin.
But
Yeah, that's it.
we're talking about the past, folks, because these have all been recorded and released. So we'll discuss offline to confirm what we did 2 weeks ago.
Okay, I didn't know enough about this film, though.
It's embarrassing. That's why Chris keeps banging on about the Joker. Becca, help us.
I'm just busy googling 70s sitcoms.
Come with Becca if you want some facts.
Oh, well, the easiest one would be Some of Us Do Have Them, because you can link to Edward Woodward quite easily, and then you're immediately in Hollywood.
Oh, I can't. I'm not as skilled as Charlie.
Well, no, but Some of Us Do Have Them had Michelle Treese in it, who was married to Edward Woodward.
Of course, yeah.
But I don't know if you can go by marriage and relationships and stuff. Don't know.
I think you probably could. I don't see why not.
Anyway, continue, Becca.
So this film was quite new, so I think pretty much we've covered all the facts. And obviously, if you follow the timeline, things get messy. So bear with me here.
All right.
So obviously, towards the end, there is the Living Daylights-esque fight in the big plane. So obviously when he sort of Toyota Rev 9 crash lands in the shed during the barbecue scene, the music in the background can be heard. It's the same as that in Terminator 2 when he turns up in the bar. Guitars and Cadillacs by Dwight Yoakam. But yeah, I was kind of thinking, we've heard that song before. Oh yeah, so that's a nice little nod to that moment. Fun fact number 2, the first Terminator movie, which is to be R-rated, whereas the previous 2 were PG-13. Fun fact number 3, believe it or not, Gabriel is actually one tough bastard. I was reading an interview with him, and apparently he shot it took them a week to shoot the last big epic fight scenes. I think it was actually might have been 2 weeks. He actually shot those scenes with Arnie Linda Hamilton with 2 broken ribs. And then he was like, "Oh, there's no way I'm going to miss out on this. There's such an opportunity of a lifetime." So it just shows what a real action star that he is. Fun fact number 4, as you mentioned at the top of the show, Dave, uses a body double for Arnie with CGI face replication, which is very cool. So we see Brett Azar again. So this is Arnie's body double. We'll see him in the future, in the past, in Genesis, coming shortly. Fun fact number 5. I don't know why my 5th fun fact is always long and rambling, but there it is. I thought, okay, I'll try and look up some information about Legion. Obviously, it has many uses, many meanings throughout art, science, pop culture. Also, the British Legion, the French Legion. Yes, it has its roots in the Bible. Comes from the New Testament. But the demons of Get that in Reese, I can't even pronounce it. It's meant to be to the 3 sort of miracles that Jesus performs. And it's basically the whole idea of like these men who kind of like who are literally possessed. So he basically kind of performs an exorcism and casts it into this group of swine who go into a river and kill themselves. Sort of ask them who they are. He's like, "Oh, we are Legion, for we are many," as obviously heard in the Red Dwarf episode. But yeah, that's my fun facts.
I thought I'd fallen asleep and
middling
woken
film.
up I thought I'd fallen asleep and woken up on a Christian podcast for a second. Wait, what?
I'm literally that's how desperate I am.
We're playing quite a long game to convert you here, Charlie. It's been 3.5 years so far. We're starting to introduce now you're starting to trust us. We're just slowly introducing the religious element.
Yeah. By the way, Charlie, have we talked to you about our Lord and Saviour John Connor?
Same initials, JC.
JC.
He died for 4 sins, Charlie. Show some respect.
All there.
See, if they could have someone crucifying Edward Furlong, that'd be amazing. All right, that's maybe a bit too far, but sorry, I mean John Connor, obviously, not Edward Furlong.
John Connor's got the same initials as Jesus Christ, doesn't he? So I don't know if that was intentional or not, but probably was.
Say that again.
John Connor's got the same initials as Jesus Christ. So it's
Right.
I don't know if that was intentional. Was like he's the saviour of humanity. I don't know. It's late. I'm talking shit. Carry on.
That's the same, really, pretty much. I was literally kind of plumbing the depths of Christianity.
This is the end of the Terminator series.
Right. This is the end of our Terminator series. Yeah. Started well.
Went on a downward slope.
Social
Until the
media.
next time.
Yeah, social media. You can find me at thepastykid1976 on Twitter.
You can find me at Cinematronics. You can also find all the shows on cinematronics.co.uk, and we're available on Spotify, Apple, and Google.
Charlie, where can we find you?
You can find me at Movie Train, and chronologically, I'll be ducking out after this one. So it's been fun.
We imagine, because there's 2 left to do. We could be complete arseholes to him in those.
That's why I said chronologically.
Yeah, we're going to be arseholes to him in the last 2. Yeah.
I feel sad.
Charlie, you will be rejoining us very soon, though, because we will be covering The Rise of Skywalker and doing a Star Wars ranking episode. You will then join us in about 3 or 4 series time for Planet of the Apes.
Oh, yes.
Right, okay. Becca, do you want to tell everyone else where we are, apart from the bits we've already said?
Okay.
Smooth.
Oh dear. But no, as usual, you can find us on Twitter at Expect Us to Talk, on Facebook.com/Do You Expect Us to Talk. Head over to YouTube, you can find us there. Just type in Do You Expect Us to Talk. Also, as Chris said, obviously we are on the iTunes, type in Do You Expect Us to Talk. Don't forget to leave us a glowing 5-star review. Thank you very much. If you want to drop us an email, nobody ever does, but should you want to,
they do.
You can drop us very occasionally.
They offered Chris that bigger penis that time.
Oh, yeah. We had some Nigerian prince.
We don't know if he took him up on that, but he lives with someone now. And he wasn't at the time, so something's gone right.
But you can always drop us an email, expectusttalk@gmail.com.
If you'd like to see Chris's penis, write to us at expectusttalk@gmail.com.
And if you're in the UK, don't forget to register to vote.
Yes, register to vote. Vote. That's the most important thing. You've got to do it.
Yeah.
For the good of the country, please do it.
So, we're going to do a Bond commentary this time, but we're not going to do one after the series that follows because it's only 3 episodes. So this is going to be a Bond commentary, and then it'll be about 3 months before we do another one. This is going to be our first redo. It's our choice. There are 2 potential redos in the series from what we've done so far. The other one might be One Day Moonraker because we lost 45 minutes of Chris's audio. So I'm talking to nobody for quite a long period of time. And the other thing is, if we redo Moonraker, Chris might share with you his wonderful casting ideas for Foghorn Leghorn. which were brilliant and we lost it.
At the time as well.
Were brilliant at the time, but without giving it away, it's a little bit like getting Gary Glitter to headline Live Aid. The event might be a bit tainted afterwards, right?
Well, I don't know. If you get some sort of hotshot producer like Harvey Weinstein, maybe it'll work.
Yeah, somebody untainted, yes. So anyway, Moonraker One Day is a possible, although the end result's still fairly funny, so we'll probably end up leaving that. But with the one I'm going to choose, 3.5 years ago, we had Mark O'Connell on the show, writer of Catching Bullets. His grandfather was a chauffeur for Cubby Broccoli. This was his favourite Bond film. We got him on the show. We did a fairly good show. We really enjoyed it. We really had enjoyed putting it on. Then we put the show live and got a torrent of "You didn't talk about the film." To which all of those people we replied, "Have you ever heard us before?" Because commentaries, we don't. But to be fair, you listen back to it, and half the time we're not even acknowledging the film is on. So we did agree, and we did say some time ago that this would be a redo. And we'll still go off tangent. We'll still talk about other things, but we will attempt, honestly, to do a commentary on it. Therefore, Do You Expect Us to Talk will return with a commentary on A View to a Kill.